All right, welcome to Be the Market Expert. And today is NAR settlement day. And so as we're looking through, and just so that everyone is all knowing to what is going on, we have the NAR settlement. So attorneys blow off objections, move for final approval of the NAR settlement. So this is today. And I think one of the big things that we're going to be looking for is that over the weekend, Sunday specifically, the DOJ came through and the DOJ said, hey, so we don't care if you approve this or don't approve this settlement yet. We want you just to be aware that we're not super happy about the language around making sure that there has to be an agreement in place to go show a property. Well, here in Colorado, we know that we don't need any kind of agreements to go show a property, right? We don't need a torrent agreement or anything along those lines. Yet the DOJ did take a stance the other day saying that, hey, you know what? If you do approve this, that's okay. Yet we just have to make sure that everyone understands that if an issue does come up later down the road, that we will be investigating any kind of antitrust that may pop up from this, right? Because of this anti-competitive process that may happen going forward. So that is today. We're just going to keep watching it and see kind of what happens. They could go through and they could change some of the things, some of the language that has been put in there, and or we could just accept it as is and move forward. So we don't know what this looks like yet. And we should have some kind of answers as we continue the rest of the day with the NAR settlement. Just know that regardless of what happens, Colorado is where we're going to land, right? We went through and we were told that we're not going to have these torrent agreements because they aren't in the client's best interest. And then the DOJ popped up and they agreed after 49 states have adopted the practice already, Colorado being the only one that does not. So it doesn't matter what really happens. We just know that we're probably going to keep doing business the way that we've been doing business. Now, I put this out the other day and it says Americans are moving but not for a job. And this is from NAR. This is from National Association of Realtors again. And what they have right now is this 2024 Migration Trends Report. And they're going through and it's really just looking at the motivations for people relocating. And so what we know in Colorado is that we've always had people moving into the states. And for the most part, if we were to look at this, it says the top 20 states gaining more residents than what they're losing. And so if we were to look through this list right now, we do have to go down quite a ways to where we're looking at this thing. But we say here the top 20. And Colorado, we're down here with 20,000, really 19. We're not going to round up on this. So 19,000 new residents have moved into Colorado, right? So the largest net migration. So more people moved into Colorado than moved out by the tune of 19,000. And so when we're going through and we're looking at this thing, if we were to pop it in, these are how they're surveying it. And this is the reasons why they're saying that people are actually moving as they're going through and they're surveying them. Closer to family and friends is number one. So if you look at here on this left-hand side, this takes all of them and it goes through and it's taking the average. Then we have over here on the far right, we can actually see where we are in the West. So more home for the money. We obviously know that's probably not us, depending on where you're going, unless you're actually coming out of like New York or California, maybe. Safer areas, less crime, lower, more favorable taxes, closer to work locations. They've already lived there, better schools, better market. And you can kind of see like it just keeps getting lower and lower. Then 24% is just some bigger other percentage that they just kind of added up and put through these. Then we said reasons why clients choose to purchase their specific home. And it's interesting. They're saying like outdoor space. More square foot needed, quieter area, more walkability and neighborhood amenities, better commute. Then we start getting into some just single digit numbers, right? They actually need less square footage, better access to the highway, right? Like we're looking at this and we got some interesting data points. And so if we're going through and we're looking at just all of this information, what are we doing to be making sure that this information's out there, right? Like, are we going through and are we going and creating social media content, right? Are we creating social media content around just, some of the things that Colorado has to offer, neighborhoods have to offer, right? We're going in here. If I'm looking at this and we're talking about outdoor space, more square footage, quieter area, like if I'm going through, like what this is telling me is if I'm creating social media content, or if I'm going through and I'm creating some open house information, I'm probably talking about the outdoor space, right? We're seeing that 42% of all people that moved in 2024 was for outdoor space. 42% or 31% of people's reasons is square footage. They needed more square footage, right? So if I'm doing a bigger home, I'm probably going to talk about the square feet. Like this thing is actually giving me the guide of the things that I should be talking about and the social media stuff that I should be putting out, right? Because I'm going through outdoor space, check, double digits. More square footage, check, double digits. Quieter area, walkability, neighborhood amenities, better work commute, right? So we're going through and we're just putting like, hey, this is X amount of miles away from the airport. How many minutes is it away from Denver, right? I'm going through closer to family and friends, more home for your money, like all of these different things. Here's double digits, like it gets through. Here's double digits right here. It says better weather conditions. And we know that, right? Like in Colorado, we know we have lots of sunshine. Yes, we do have snow, and the snow kind of disappears pretty quickly around here. So I would use this report more so just as a guide to be able to create just information to kind of put it out there, as well as when I am coming up with open houses and I'm going to advertise anything, like this is the stuff that I want to be talking about, because as NAR is surveying people, this is what they're saying is the biggest reason to why they are moving at this point. Here's another interesting thing, like as we're going through, here's just a Zillow forecast for metro level home prices between October 2024 and 2025. All right, so this is going through and this is crystal ball time. All right, so what we're looking at is Zillow Economist. They got their crystal ball and they said, what do we think is going to happen with home prices? So if we look down here at the key, right, it's saying this is 12-month forecast published in November. This is brand new. Zillow expects national home prices to rise about 2.9% between 2024 and 2025. All right. So Zillow is predicting nationwide that the national home price is going to increase 2.9%. Cool. Good to know. Then we're going through and it's looking at just the areas of where they're going to see appreciation. So if we were to look just around Colorado, because really that's all we truly care about. If we were to start in Pueblo, they're saying that they're going to see about 1.8% appreciation. We go to Grand Junction, they're going to say 3.2%. Colorado Springs, 0.7%. We head to this Denver, Lakewood, Aurora area, which is primarily where we're doing business, 0.2%. So not huge appreciation, right? But yet I think the thing that we need to keep in mind is there's still homes appreciating. And I think that what we're seeing and where they're predicting this to happen is you could actually see this larger circle, right? Like you can see these are pretty small circles where they're going through and they have some bigger numbers, these really small circles. Well, the reason for that is they're saying that this is really the inventory. Well, there's going to be a lot, they're thinking there's going to be a lot more inventory in our area, which is a good thing, right? This means that there's going to be options for our buyers to be able to go through and make decisions for what's best for their family, right? Whether that is closer to the family, more home for the money, outdoor space, more square footage, right? Like we're going through, they're saying like these are the things that are going to be contributing, and there's going to be more homes. And that's why we're going to see lesser of a price increase. We're looking at Boulder, Boulder, they already have a pretty high price point. We looked at this data, I think last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, where we were looking at it, and they have one of the highest zip codes or highest cities as far as a metro area right now for prices. So, I mean, you can't keep appreciating that fast. We look at Greeley, 0.3%. And then we look at Fort Collins, also 3%. So nationwide, 2.9%. And what we're seeing is we're going to actually see it with more inventory hitting the market. That's what they're predicting. We're not going to see these huge price swings. That's what this is telling me. So nationwide, 2.9% is crystal ball. And then Colorado, we're seeing, less than 0.5% appreciation from now or from last month until 2025 of October, right? So this is what they're saying, 12-month data. Now, if we're going through, let's jump into Housing Wire, and let's look at Logan Moshami, the lead analyst for Housing Wire. And he starts it off by saying, hey, it has almost been 2 months since mortgage rates have spiked again. And his initial thoughts were that they would tank housing demand. And yet he says we had 18 positive weeks of purchase applications before mortgage rates started rising in September. And he figured with those increases, they would produce the same weakness in purchase applications that we saw earlier this year when we were having these higher mortgage rates. He said, but surprisingly, demand has held up better than anticipated. I think this is what's important, everyone. And we're going to look at the interest rates here. And I want everyone to kind of just keep this in mind. I think what we're truly seeing right now is that with steady percentage with the interest rates, right? I get that they spiked up, but more people are more just concerned with it being flat, right? I get that they went up, scares people, but then they've leveled off. And I get that they're higher, but they're level. We know death, divorce, marriage, having kids, right? We know all of these different factors come into being motivating factors with our home buyers and our home sellers, all right? And so even with elevated interest rates and them staying flat, there's still stability. When we have these markets where it ebbs and flows and looks like a roller coaster that you shouldn't get on after eating a big lunch, that's what scares people, right? That is what scares people, and that's what actually has people pump the brakes. We saw people pump the brakes in 2022 when they skyrocketed up really quickly, and yet demand didn't disappear truly at the end of the year, even though the rates were elevated. With flat rates, we're actually probably going to see more people raise their hand as long as they don't spike up and down. And yes, there's a lot of smart people out there that are calling for 2025, at least Q3, Q4 of 2025, for us to see like 5.5% interest rates. With that, we obviously will see more people raise their hand because we do have an affordability issue. Yet, even with the affordability issue, there are still people that need to buy and sell for multiple different reasons. So if we look at this is what I was talking about. Like if we were to look at this visual, we have 2022, 2023, here we are in 2024, and we're kind of staying on the same baseline as 2023. 2022, we know about like right here, this is when interest rates started to really spike up. And we started seeing this tick off, but it's still higher than what it is today. And then 2023, they stayed elevated this entire time. And in 2024, they rose a little bit. And this is kind of where we are. Now, with that being said, people can only sit on the sidelines for so long. And I think that's the biggest thing. There are still motivating factors for why people have to buy and why people have to sell. And I think there was a lot of information that was going out there that didn't matter where you were getting your news. Fox, CNN, Twitter, YouTube, it did not matter. There's a lot of people out there, and you can go on today, like even just go in and go into YouTube and type in like housing market. There's a lot of people calling for the crash still, because this is the thing, that's what gets clicks. And I think a lot of people are wising up at this point. They're saying like this is fake news, right? Like there is no housing crash that's on the horizon because there's still not enough inventory. And there's no housing crash coming. We're not in a housing bubble. There isn't a Airbnb bust. There isn't a silver tsunami coming. Like none of this is happening. And so people are finally getting tired of sitting on the sideline. And yes, there is still an affordability issue. There are still people that can't actually go out and afford to go buy a house, but there are people that can, and that there are people that are to the point where they have to. They can't sit in that cramped housing that they've been in anymore. Now, I get that they're not moving for fun. Like, we just look at the reason why people are moving, right? They're looking for outdoor space. They're needing more square footage. It may be a quieter area. They're looking for neighborhoods with amenities, a better work commute. Like, these are motivations. These are the motivating factors that are getting people to raise their hand. And we don't see anywhere where it says lower interest rates, right? Like, lower interest rates are nowhere on here, and they're gone. So this is the reason why people are starting to move, and they're just getting tired of sitting on the sideline. So your pending sales data, check this out. Here's 2022, here's 2023, look at 2024. This is showing you, even with elevated interest rates, people have contracts on homes right now. I mean, look at this. We have elevated rates. They went up, and we'll look at them. But as we look at this thing, look at where we're sitting. Nationwide, we have 12% more single-family homes in contract right now. Think about that, right? Interest rates are high. There's a narrative. It doesn't matter what news channel you go on. And yes, there is an affordability issue. Totally get that. But yet there's still people that can afford to buy a house. There's still people out there that need to buy a house. There are motivating factors that are out there. And for a very long time, they've been given this false narrative that just wait. It's going to get better. Home prices are going to go down. Rates are going to get better. And people have been waiting on the sideline for 2 years now. And now they're like, you know what, I can't wait anymore. So we need to be doing a great job with having conversations, going out there, talking to our people, right? We know that we're in the season of renewal. There's going to be a lot of touch points. A lot of you in the Thursday of this week are going to be sitting down at tables, whether it's a Friendsgiving or you're hanging out with family, and conversations are going to come up about real estate. And this is some of the conversations we could be having, right? Like 12%. We have 12% more homes under contract right now than we did this time last year. Yeah, interest rates are a little bit higher, yet they're not going to go down to those lows that we saw. And so there's more people raising their hand and that are under contract. We're not going to talk about the 10-year yield of the 10-year treasury or any of the spreads, like as we're going through that, but let's look at housing data. Let's look at our inventory, right? So inventory did fall from 722,000 down to 719,000 nationwide. If we were to look at this last year, we kind of see the same pattern, right? It does go down. It's not a huge swing, even last year, because we have seasonality. We are in a very seasonal business, right? When we're thinking about this, people are going on vacation, right? We have fall break coming up. We got winter break coming up, where it's a very seasonal time. And again, with that being said, there are still motivations that are going to pop up. And I was talking to one of the agents, or I was talking to Johnny today, and about like, while this is a vacation time, also people are going to be at home. They're going to be looking at homes for sale, and phones are probably going to ring, right? Hey, this house that just popped up that I saw, that I'd actually like to take a look at it. And so while it is vacation time, it's also a time for people to actually get on social media, to get on these websites and start looking, and your phones are probably going to ring. If we were to look at 2022, we can see that this was the all-time inventory bottom in 2022 was 240,000 units, right? We get this. Interest rates started to, spike, which didn't really have a direct correlation. But what we would really look at is with lower interest rates, we had less homes available, right? So that's what this pink line is. Here's the low interest rates. They were still very, very low right here. They were starting to go up right around like March, February-ish. They were starting to change some policy. And then we started seeing inventory hit the market because interest rates started going up. So this is direct correlation with lower interest rates. This is more of your correlation with higher interest rates. If we were to look at just the peak, right? The peak for inventory levels, 739,000 in 2024, which is still a far cry from 2015 at 1.1 million units. And so here's just your visual representation. There's more homes on the market. So 27% more inventory is on the market today, which is interesting because even with that, we have 12% more homes under contract. So 12% more homes under contract. This is not in this number, right? This is active inventory, which is a little bit different. So we have more inventory on the market, and we also have more homes under contract than we did last year. Just looking at new listings data, we can see this. We're coming up. More homes are hitting the market, which is solid. This is what we're looking for, right? Like as we're going through and we're doing these different things, we need more inventory. New inventory is going to flatten out the home appreciation, which is what we need. Yeah, it's going to be not fun, like if you're looking to sell your house. But at the same time, what this should potentially do is we stop seeing these huge spikes in sales. What we're going to also see is we're going to see the appraiser, the assessors. We're going to see the tax assessors numbers start going down as well. So we should start seeing less of these bigger spikes going through if homes aren't selling for astronomical amounts of money. And we're starting to see it flatline a little bit. That's also good for the people that are staying in place, which most people are going to, except for the motivated. Price cut percentages nationwide right now, we're looking at 39%. 39% of all homes. We know that 1/3 of all homes, historically speaking, take a price cut every year. Right now, we're sitting at 39%. So looking at our visual representation, we're kind of in line, right? Like there's nothing crazy. If we're looking at this 2022, we saw a bigger one just because these were the motivated people that had already made up their mind to sell their house. They were on the market and they had to probably take more price cuts. But yeah, we're right in line in 2023, right? We start seeing some seasonality. These homes have been sitting on the market and they're going to start pushing a little bit more, right? 39% of all homes right now are starting to take a price cut. So what they're talking about right now, right? Again, this was Friday data. And so what we're looking at with this Friday data is for this week. And it says this week is a holiday week, which means that all hands aren't at the trading desk. So we can see some volatility in the markets, especially with some bond auctions happening. So we're going through, and we also have the Fed's PCE inflation data this week, which will have a factor for the next Federal Reserve meeting. And again, with inflation is just a little piece of the equation, right? We look at inflation and we look at jobs reports, right? Like those are the two biggest factors that come in that have to do with why our rates are happening in the mortgage world. So as we're looking at this thing, home price data is expected to show a cooling trend in the growth compared to the highest earlier in the year. And again, very seasonal market. This is when people start to go to sleep. So we also have to keep in mind that jobless claims data can be unpredictable around the holidays. So what we're going to do is we're going to take probably a lot of grain of salt when it comes to this jobs data. So what I'm really hearing from all this, rates probably aren't going to change much. I think the only thing that would change these rates a whole lot over the next 2 months is if something happens, across the water, right? When we're talking about, Russia, Ukraine, China, right? Like those different things. We're probably not going to see anything really happen with rates unless something happens out there, because we know that job losses are kind of a little bit bigger right now, even with seasonality and everything happening. And again, we don't really care about the inflation data too much, because again, this is also when people are spending. So when we start talking about like credit card debt and, people are Black Friday shopping and all these other things, like we kind of expect that. So inflation is probably going to tick up, probably not going to have a huge impact on rates. We could see more jobless claims, not going to probably have a huge impact on rates either, because we kind of expect it. Again, I think the only thing that would really move the needle on anything rate wise would, be the conflict out, in the Russia-Ukraine area. I did want to show you guys this. I don't know if anyone's ever looked at this. This is RPR. And so for RPR, if you should have this access either through Realtor or through RE Colorado. And all I did was I just put in 8 and here it is. First and foremost, here's 8 and you can see here are all of the neighborhoods that are associated with it, right? And here's the streets and everything. So if we're going through, what I've done is I've ran a location report for a triple lot 2, and it's a rear view facing data for the previous month, which is kind of neat. And you can say that saying, hey, we're still in a buyer's market. We have 2.5 months of inventory, which is a little bit higher month over month, so the previous month. We can go through and we can look at sales price is 99.5%. Which means that we're not saying 100% of our list is no price, 55 days on market, which is up 120% month over month. And the median sold price is $635,000. Okay, cool. And so this is for single family and condos, townhomes, apartments. We could switch it. We could say, you know what? I want to see just a single family, and I want you to apply it for either just this chart or all the charts. So you're going to see that it kind of changes a little bit, not a whole lot. But if we were to look through, this is where it gets kind of neat as well. So we're having some conversations. Maybe we're at the dining room table, and we might bring this report. We could also share it, right? Like you could actually share this chart on social media if you wanted to. You can see Facebook, X, LinkedIn, more. Like you could actually pull this data and put something out here. What's cool is I can hover over this, and I can see Colorado. We had a price point. We look at Jefferson County, we have a price point. Arvada specifically, and a triple lot 2 specifically. And we can see the different dollar amounts, like as we're going through and playing with this, and we can look for historical data. Look, this is 2008 all the way up into 2024, which is pretty cool. Like you could do 3 years worth of data, pretty flat, 2 years worth of data, 1 year worth of data. Like you can pull all of these different numbers. You can look at new listings. You can go through, you can jump into the median list price. It does price per square foot, new pending listings. It'll go through. And again, this is rear view facing data. So you could pull this for the previous month. And, or if you're going through and you're having a conversation with your seller, and you can say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, like this is what the numbers are looking for. Median days on market. You can talk about how long. This is RPR, Arden, RPR. And you can go through and you can pull all this data. So if we were to go just pending listings, we can see that the median price point was $637,000 in a triple lot 2. And these are for homes that are under contract. It took about 41 days with the price per square foot being $395. Total volume, we had $5.1 million in sales or in pending sales for October in a triple lot 2. Which is kind of neat. Like we have sold data again. So number of properties, there was 21 homes in a triple lot 2 that sold in October, which was up 40%. And it was 99.45% average list to sales price. They took about 55 days on market. And look, you can kind of show this, right? Like you can actually look at seasonality here. Seasonality. This isn't seasonality. This is just high interest rates, maybe a little bit of seasonality, right? Seasonality, right? Like we can actually show the difference in when you kind of list a house and what's kind of happening. So kind of fun, but yeah, this is, I may have been signed out, but this is RPR as we're looking at this thing, and you should all have access to this through RE Colorado. But let's look at interest rates. And this is what I'm referring to. Yes, they are elevated. And while they are elevated, you can see they've gone down a little bit, which is exciting. And yet we do know that when we see more of a flat line like this is security for people. I get that they're higher than most people want to spend, and yet there's still motivated people out here. What we don't want to see, well, this is what absolutely scares people, like as we're going up and it's just rising. This is what gets people to move a little bit quicker unless they're trying to time the bottom, which doesn't ever work. Like people trying to time this, and they're like, I don't know what the bottom looks like. But what we don't want to see is all these big jagged edges, right? We don't want to see a bunch of this. This creates uncertainty. Remember, most sellers become buyers. Historically speaking, most sellers become buyers. So when your seller raises their hand and they say, I want to go buy a house, but I have to sell mine, this is what scares them. Remember what has to happen for them to lock in a rate. They have to be under contract. But if rates are truly elevating, we know that it's taking 55 plus days to sell a home. This is what slows people down. So as they're going through, this is what's happening. Most sellers become buyers. Rates are ticking up. They don't know when they're going to go under contract, and they see rates are getting higher and higher. They don't put their home on the market. This is what slows people down. This, on the other hand, this is good. This slowed people down a little bit. But when we just look at 1 month data, this is why we're seeing people raise their hand and they're interested in having a conversation right now, is because these aren't giant swings as we're looking at this. This is relatively pretty flat and we're going down. So 6.7, 6.45, we believe we might see 100 basis points swing by this time next year, down to 5.5. We'll see what that looks like. And then just as always, like just looking at Altos data, again, I think this is important, like as you're having conversations with your sellers as well, you can pull up Altos data, you're going through, we can see that at least in ARRR2, where the brokerage is, we stayed pretty flat at $646,000 is the median list price. Average days on market is going down a little bit, but they're saying 77 days on market on average, with the median being 49. And again, like these numbers, these are the numbers that I'm using to have the conversation with my sellers. If we list the price of the home wrong, we could sit on the market for north of 2.5 months. If we list the home right, when we're going through, we're going to be less than 2 months on the market. And so this is why the data matters, is we can use these numbers and we can have a conversation with our sellers. Price decreases are up 62%. So we're talking about these people that are sitting on the market for 77 days. They are doing price cuts at the tune of 62%, double the historical national average of 1/3 of all homes. Price decreases or increases 0%. Again, this number doesn't super excite me. Like as I'm looking at this is phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 of new builds. All this tells me is that new builds aren't increasing in price too much. Relisted homes, though, at 7%, we're seeing more homes that are hitting the market after going under contract. They're actually going back on contract onto the market because the price of money, they want to make sure that they're getting the best deal possible and they're falling apart through the negotiation process. What we're also seeing, though, at the same time, is we're also seeing people not lock in their rates. And so we need to be having the conversation with our buyers as well as the lenders to see like where they locked in, because this is actually, I think, where we're seeing some of the stuff happen as well. People are playing games where they're like, interest rates should be dropping. And then they get to a point where they're trying to time the market and they've gone up a little bit. And that's where they're falling out of contract. Inventory score of 29, $2,600 is your rent, and a market score of 44. We can see that right now versus last month, we are in a better seller's market. And so what we're going through as we're seeing this, we might see price increases stay flat, homes coming off the market a little bit quicker, yet we're in the holiday season. So we're going to see kind of what this looks like as we continue to progress over the next month.